Hello and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben. As always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor to bring you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This week, we're discussing whether delaying Generation 10 to coincide, not genocide, with Pokemon's 30-year anniversary would change their yearly release schedule. We're also explaining why some players are annoyed by Pokemon locked in older generations. And finally, we're asking if the mystery gift has gone stale. As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. Conor, after last week, I'm wondering when we're going to get this big fat check from Nintendo for coming up with the Super Switch. I say we, you.
I mean, obviously, it's whenever they announce it. Whenever they announce it properly and not just announce to announce it.
Yeah. We've had the announcement about the announcement, but now we want the announcement.
And then when they release it and say, the new Super Switch, we can go, excuse me, we had that first. You can find it here. I'm pretty sure if they had trademarked a name, we'd know about it.
That's a good point, actually. They must be leaving it until very late. Because normally, like, gaming companies, we know about it quite early, or at least we know the rumors, because they typically trademark a load of
Thing is, we usually have
domains.
Yeah, the trademarked name and the production name, as it were. Like for GameCube, it was the Dolphin. So,
and yet we've had none of that.
We haven't had any of it. The only thing we've really had is a bunch of people saying, "Yeah, we've got dev kits," and now an announcement for an announcement. It's very odd, this release cycle.
Yeah, they are doing. So it makes you think one of two things: either they're keeping it under wraps somehow, which feels like that is next to impossible to do, or the fact that they themselves don't know. So when they are handing out the dev kits, I can't speak today, and they're going, "Oh, here you go. Start developing your game on this platform," and then the gaming company's coming out and going, "What's it called?" They go, "It's not got a name yet." Just not. Maybe they are literally in the paperwork or whatever. It literally goes, he's the dev kit for the Switch successor. Maybe that's just what they're referring to internally and externally until they nail down the name. But it feels like you should have that by now, unless we aren't getting the Super Switch until the end of next year.
Oh God, could you imagine? That's so late.
It really is. All the rumors were saying December this year, and then the rumors were saying late February, early March next year. The longer we get in this year, it might eventually turn around and go, yeah, rumors are aiming for a Christmas 2025 release window or a holiday 2025 release window, which is crazy to think about.
So I'm just looking if there has been any trademarks come out. There was a trademark for NSW, which is just the abbreviation for Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Unless they definitely went again. Oh no, because it was the Wii U, wasn't it? I was going to say the Nintendo Switch Wii, but no, that doesn't make any sense. 3rd of May 2024, Nintendo has filed 2 new trademarks: Kirby and Full Box. No.
Full Box.
I'm having a quick look. Full Box, the newest entry in the series, offers a brand new twist to the formula by adding extra dimensions. I assume that's talking about Kirby.
Okay.
Yeah. Trademarks have been registered for Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, which was a Wii U title,
cool.
And Full Blocks, not Full Box.
Full Blocks.
Also known as Stretchmo, which was a 3DS title. So neither of them are anything.
Nope.
3 months ago, we had... Let's have a look. Poke Park Galar? I don't know. No idea.
What? Okay. Interesting.
No, nothing there.
Nothing
Nothing that I can immediately find, and it shouldn't really be that hard, is my initial thoughts.
What are we going to do between now and potentially next year for Pokemon news. Like, we are, the fact that we are able to come up with content every single week, despite the fact that there is next to no gaming news from either Game Freak, Pokemon Company, or Nintendo. It's scary just how little they're pumping out at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, there will always be Pokemon Go news that we can kick off at. That's a standard.
Kick off at? Yeah,
tell me the last time we reported on Pokemon Go it was positive.
I think it might have been the episode where it was me and Luis and we spoke about Pokemon Go, and we were like, okay, we do need to give Pokemon Go some praise, because, you know, they do a lot of good things, I think. However, I don't know if you hear the news this week, and this is completely unscripted, that it's been voted the most buggiest mobile game.
What's that, Pokemon Go?
Pokemon Go conveyed the most buggiest Pokemon game.
Which you got to keep
surprising.
That Pokemon reputation up, haven't you?
Oh, yes. It's not a Pokemon game without the bugs, unfortunately. Should we move on to the first question this week that we have had submitted courtesy of King Nido? By the way, you know, I was just saying about creating content for this podcast. This is one of the great ways that you can do it, folks. If you've got a comment, you've got a question, you've got something you want us to talk about, then please do so. So, King Nido has said, there have been recent hints and speculation at the next generation not releasing until 2026, which just so happens to be the 30th anniversary of Pokemon. With that, if a new generation became every 4 years instead of the recent 3, what would you break up or fill the years with in the release cycle? So the crux of the question here is, Pokemon decide to go for every 4 years instead of 3 years, but they still want something every single year to make sure that they've got content being pumped out.
Okay. But we're talking about 4 years per generation, not 4 years between games. So you've still got in between that the ability to have a Legends game, a remake, and possibly DLC. There you go. That's it. That's your 4 years covered.
And I think I'd be okay with that. I would happily be okay with that. I think that, you know, one Pokemon game every year to me is the right amount. It feels like enough to kind of play, scratch that itch, and then I get almost that comfort break of, I can put this down for a little bit, so that when the cycle kicks back up and we get a new Pokemon game come out, I've had enough of a break that I then enjoy playing and, you know, taking part in the new game.
Okay. Counterpoint, though. Would you have been happy if you had to deal with BDSP for a year before you got Legends Arceus?
No, I wouldn't.
I'm not saying that we should ever have a game like BDSP again, even though it was one of the best-selling games of Pokemon ever, which we cannot take away.
But I think... So there's a question back to you there. That, you know, not being happy with having that for a year, is that because it was BDSP? If you'd have replaced that with Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire or Heart Gold Soul Silver, would you have been happy with that for a year?
Yeah, of course I would have.
Yeah. Of course I don't think the issue there is a remake. I think the issue there is BDSP.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think that is the answer that you need to go down now. I think the fact that they've now found that Legends Arceus is a viable product, effectively. It's not going to hold over all of the fans, but some of those hardcore fans who are really into the mainline games kind of only play the mainline games anyway, so you're not losing them as such. So yeah, they've got 3 games to release over 4 years and DLC after the first one.
Yeah, I think that DLC is... I think that there's a huge benefit to DLC. It allows you to stretch out the latest generation. Instead of it being 1 year, it's spread out over 2 years. That obviously means that there's an increased chance that people will, maybe if they don't buy it at launch, they wait until the DLC comes out. The DLC is positively received. They therefore go out and buy it as a bundle, as a package, whatever it might be. I think it also helps them to prevent people from selling their games once it's complete. So it helps to make sure that, you know, they're constantly getting that that more people buying the game rather than buying a second-hand version of the game, which means that Nintendo and Game Freak get none of the profits from that. I also think that it's a great way to, I'd imagine, and I don't know this because I don't develop games, where I'd imagine it takes less development resources to develop DLC than it does to create a whole new game. So there's the benefit of that.
Depends. I would argue yes in most cases, unless we're talking about what the DLC really replaced, which was the third game in a generation, which, as we know, take almost no production because Heart Gold Soul Silver was built by a team of 12. So we know it can be done with very minimal because your engine is already built. Most of the Pokemon models are already in there. We can just build in a new story and go from there. It's not. Whereas they're actually designing new areas, some new Pokemon come into it. The question I have is, the question I was going to bring up is, if we're now expecting DLC with every single mainline release, are we happy with saying that every single Pokemon game from now on is £90?
So the reason I'm laughing is because my answer is no, despite the fact that I've done it twice now.
But yeah, exactly, and so have I.
And
even more. Let's not forget, if you buy both versions, it's even more.
Which is a con in itself, and something that I will never agree with. The fact that you have to pay for the DLC for both Sword and Shield, and the DLC for both Scarlet and Violet. It's bang out of order.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
That being said, I mean, there is an argument that, well, it replaces the third game, so realistically, the same kind of people who were paying full price for a third game now only pay half price for a DLC. But the thing is, half the people who buy the DLC wouldn't have bought the third game because there's not enough new content in the third games to justify it if you've already got it. There is kind of enough there is enough content in the DLC to justify the price, arguably. But I do feel like we're going to start going down a path where we're going to see the games unfinished, as we kind of started to see with Scarlet and Violet, where they just didn't finish the storyline because they went, we'll make you pay for the DLC. Here's a game and pay for the ending. That's my biggest worry.
I think it's a valid, I think it's a very valid criticism, because you look at Sword and Shield, which wrapped up its story, and then the extra content were almost these little side adventures. You don't need these to. They almost complemented the base game, but the base game stood on its own. I do agree with you, Scarlet and Violet, that wasn't the case. And the reason why is because obviously you had to go back to Area Zero. You solved the mystery of Terrapagos. These are all things that weren't included in the baseline game, but actually answered some of the leftover questions from the baseline game. Now, the question is, did they do that because they ran out of time and just thought, let's just cover that at a later stage because it gives us more time? Or was it a case of, oh no, we think there's enough core content there in the mainline game, and this extra additional content is something that like I said, complements the base game. Like how I guess the question is was the base game, and I know what your answer is, was the base game completely unfinished? Like and I'm not talking from us that really enjoy the lore and the breakdown stuff, but from just the average layperson, is for them like the end of Area Zero in the base game, is that enough for them?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Probably yes. I think they could get away with it. And the worst thing is, I think they thought they could get away with it. I don't think they came up with Terrapagos after the games came out. And that's kind of where I'm a little bit annoyed about it. They built Scarlet and Violet knowing what the third legendary was, hinting at the third legendary and its powers all the way through it, and went, but we're not giving that to you yet. You got to pay more for that. They took the third legendary out of the game. This like core staple within the Pokemon franchise, They took it out of the game and charged you £30 for it.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I do.
And this is kind of the road I think we're going to go down, which is a case of, let's just not finish the game. Let's just, we'll get it to a point, and then we'll wrap it up somewhat and leave a bunch of loose ends and a bunch of things missing, and then we'll just sell it to them. So every Pokemon game becomes £90. No longer is it you can pay, and let's not forget, when we were getting third games, they were only £30 because they were all handheld games. We weren't at the £50, £60 mark yet.
We weren't. They were cheaper, yes.
So we're now paying basically all three. You used to be able to get all three titles in a generation, or sorry, across a sort of Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, if you will.
Yeah.
And then that'd be 90 quid. And now it's a case of, no, you pay that for one game and it's DLC, which is the one game if you want to finish it. Oh, and if you want to get the other version of it, that's another 90 quid. I've annoyed myself in this way of thinking, but it's kind of just hit me as I've been talking about it, how ridiculous that's kind of become.
Yep. Because there is somebody at Game Freak, and probably someone at Nintendo, and probably someone at the Pokemon Company that all talk to one another and go, how can we maximize profits from these games? And if you don't think that happens, I'm sorry, you're probably unaware that these are businesses that exist to make money. That's ultimately what they are there for. And you know what? I'm not going to fault them for that, because as a business, you need to make money. But there comes a point where it is, no, now you are just taking the mick. And my concern is because my concern is whether or not Legends ZA goes down this route. And the reason why is because everything you criticize Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for in terms of it didn't wrap up the story, you had to pay for the DLC to do that. Pokemon Legends Arceus didn't do any of that. Pokemon Legends Arceus was one game, not two. Let's not forget that. And it covered the entirety of the story, and even released new Pokemon that weren't behind a paywall. And then we got free DLC at the end of it in a patch.
Exactly. And that's
now
a beautiful way of doing it. And I would really like that to stay that way, at least for the Legends series. But I am
agreed.
Apprehensive to put my money on it.
I'm going to give them a little bit more credit, to be quite honest with you, because I think because of the positive reception that Legends Arceus got, and the fact that it feels like Game Freak were just allowed to kind of, okay, here's your little love project. Go away and do whatever you want. We'll keep interference to a minimum. Just do what you want. Get it off your chest. And it did really well. I'm hoping that the higher ups will go, okay, we hear you. We'll let you do it again, and we'll leave you to it again. But my concern is the fact that the people at the top are going, there's another like mini franchise here. We've had the generations, and every generation now we can do Legends and have Legends as its own little generational thing that you get every 3 to 4 years. What can we do to milk more money out of that? Now, the reason I'm leaning towards the first argument that I posed of, we'll just leave you to this game and you can do it however you want, is the fact that so far it's Legends Z to A. It's not Legends Z and Legends A, and there's two versions of that game. It is just one version. So I'm hoping that we'll get a fully fledged out piece of content from start to end that introduces and builds new things, that develops at least Legends, if not the main generations, and then maybe at the end, I would be happy with DLC for Legends ZA. And I'm only saying that because I was disappointed that we didn't get it for Legends Arceus.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Legends Arceus, although the free patch was very well received and I was very grateful for it, I was sad to not have any kind of follow-up. Yeah. See, and that's the difference with DLC. DLC needs to be, I really loved what I had. I would like more of it, please. Not,
yes, exactly.
Hey, can I have the rest of my meal?
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost the dessert, isn't it? You've had the main meal, you are full, but there's still that little part of you goes, I could eat a dessert. And that's what the DLC should be. It should be that almost that sweet end point where, you don't need the DLC. If you never touch the DLC, you won't have missed anything. You because you've got the main, you've had to eat, you've enjoyed it. If you want that little bit of extra content because you really enjoyed it, then here you go.
No, it's like all these burger it's like all these burger places now that make you charge extra for chips. It's like, I'm ordering a burger. It should come with chips.
With the chips, yes.
Why? Who's ordering a burger on its own? Who's just eating a burger and then leaving? Order the chips. Give me the chips. Or if it's like a gluten thing, that's fine. Give alternatives. But don't charge me an extra £4 for chips when the burger's already £15.
Yeah, it should come with the chips. I completely agree. I know there'll be people out there that go, I just want the burger, but I'm sorry, you're wrong. Burger should come with chips. It's just one of those staple things. You have them together. Just a thing. But anyway, back onto Pokemon. So, to go back to the original question, we've kind of answered that, how they could do that release cycle. And I think it would work. And I think it would help to prevent some of the burnout.
Yeah.
But the underlying issue, though, is still, why are they pumping out one game every year when maybe they should pump out a game every 1.5 years just to build up that development time? And obviously the answer comes down to profits at the end of the day. They want a game every year at released, the usual window that they release, November, because it just before just before Christmas. So either you buy it or your parents are going to buy it at Christmas. We go back to what I can't remember who was it, whether or not they were at Pokemon Company or Nintendo that said, "Oh yeah, we've heard the fans, and we're going to." And we came to the conclusion that wasn't them saying they're going to slow down the release schedule. It was just no, we're going to figure out how to make this work with our current release schedule of one game every year.
Yeah, it was the comment was, we've heard the fans and we're in talks about it. It's like, okay, that's right. Very non-committal statement, isn't it?
It was very non-committal.
But even if you consider, just randomly, if we go down this release window, okay, so you've got the mainline game, Generation 10, for instance, comes out in 2026. Okay, and then you put a small amount of team on the DLC, because as you say, it takes less development, so we can have a small team on that. The vast majority of the team goes over to working on Legends XYZ. Okay, so we got 2 years to work on Legends.
Mm-hmm.
If we've then got maybe the remake handed off to somebody like Ilka or Ilka themselves, that buys us another year between that release and the next one to build Generation 11. Have you just given yourself 2 years to have the whole company work on a game? Or are they still going to work in these really small teams with Team A and Team B and have 4 years to work on the game? Because at the moment, they take 3 years with half the team.
Yeah. I think there's no matter which one of those you choose, there are benefits and there are disadvantages. Because let's say you have got 4 years to work on a game. That is a really long development time. It allows you to, if you manage your time correctly, flesh out and build a really well-developed game. The problem is, however, that if those 2 teams aren't talking to one another, or 3 teams aren't talking to one another, you get this mismatch of, okay, you like the mechanic that was in the last game that we released 3 years ago? Well, sorry, but we've been working on this game for 3 years ourselves now, and we now can't implement that new mechanic. We saw that, whether or not it was a conscious decision or not to include some of the features such as the catching mechanic from Legends in Scarlet and Violet, and I'm pretty sure that we read about that was because of the development overlap of these two. I'm waving my hands around. If you listen to the podcast, you can't see it, but they were happening at the same time. Now, the issue with if you have smaller teams and they have 2 years to almost blitz a game.
Or sorry, I think be a bigger team with 2 years. Yep.
Yes. I still think you'll have the issues that you got with Scarlet and Violet of, yes, a bigger team doesn't necessarily mean you can do more work. Because if you've got, like, let's say you've got, 1,000 employees working on something, which I know Game Freak doesn't have, you have to do them in a somewhat logical order of events. So if, whoever's doing the first bit, whatever that is in game development, is behind, well, it has a knock-on effect on all the rest as well. And as we've seen, Game Freak typically don't like to delay a game. They hit their release windows, but I think that's to the detriment of the team of, okay, it's getting close, let's crunch it. Okay, let's see what we can drop, or we can add in DLC or move things around. I think that, unfortunately, I think the issue is a combination of things that we've discussed before, of it's not got enough people, they don't have enough time or resource, and they're held to these release windows.
No. So, I mean, if we really, really wanted better games, I think the real answer is you can't release them every year. You just can't.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Regardless of whether or not you have bigger teams and smaller windows, or you divvy up create smaller teams that have longer times, neither of those ways kind of address the underlying issue, which is the fact that we want a game out every single year. That's ultimately the issue. Like, I think that...
And we're already giving them the benefit of DLC being one of the games and another company producing the re-release.
Yeah.
And we still don't think it would be enough for them.
No.
Because games take time, especially if you want them to be AAA titles, which Pokemon should be if you're going to charge me AAA price for it. I'm sorry, Pokemon came to the console, and it just has not lived up to what a console game should be. I love Legends Arceus, but it's not a full-fledged console game. It's just not.
Agreed. No, definitely not. Definitely not. And this is the annoying thing. Like, I enjoyed Legends Arceus as almost that bringing life back into a series that I felt was not so much in decline, because I don't think Pokemon's ever been in decline, but I think it's been stale for a long time. And it brought life back into the franchise for me. It delivered a lot of RPG elements that I think should be included in a monster catching game. And I thought it was, and I hate this phrase, this almost proof of concept of, this is what it will be like moving forward. Or we can give them a bit of benefit of the doubt that some of the issues are just things that they are experimenting with. But we said the same thing with Sword and Shield, of the issues that we had with the overworld Pokemon, in particular the wild area. Oh, it's just because they're experimenting ready for the next generation, and look where that ended up. Like, we give Game Freak a lot of benefit of the doubt and free passes, despite the fact that they should be the ones that are driving the RPG genre forward of, look at all these great new innovations that we're bringing out.
Palworld should not have been a splash. It shouldn't have been.
No, it shouldn't. No. Agreed. And it still annoys me how much fun I'm having with Palworld.
More so than it was in a little while, to be fair.
No. More so than I had with Scarlet and Violet, unfortunately. But it's just one of those things where, do I think Palworld is better than Pokemon? No, definitely not. Do I think from a gameplay perspective, it is better than or more enjoyable than Pokemon? Yeah. Does it do anything new? No. It does Palworld does absolutely nothing new. It takes a load of mechanics that are in a load of other games, but it just brings them together in a really fun and engaging way. Which, if they can do it, then why can't Pokemon and Game Freak?
It's so hard for me to have hope. It's so hard for me to have. It is. I had 300,000 people tell me I was an idiot, for having hope, and they were right. It's hard to build up again after that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. And you know what is really annoying is the longer we've done this podcast, the more ways that we have come up with ways to develop what is already there a lot of the, speculation or ideas that we've come up with aren't reinventing the wheel. It's just taking what is already there and going, oh, let's tweak it and adjust it. Not like we're going, no, let's take Pokemon and just throw it out the window and start again. No, it's like, we've already got that. Let's see how we can build on it and develop on it. And with that, I think it'd be quite useful to move on to, I think it was Tony that mentioned this comment a couple of weeks ago. I'd like for Mega Evolution to be used like the soaring mechanic again in Oras. You're given something like the ride pager from Alola to call upon a set Mon from your party to Mega Evolve into the HM utility Mon. You need to progress through a route. Blend the two mechanics back together like it was originally introduced. Now, this comes off the back of when we were talking about how you could implement Mega Pokemon into Legend Z to A, and various comments and discussions that me and you have had, Connor, about, HM Mons, or, do we want to see something similar to the ride Pokemon from Legend Z to A, or how do we feel about the ride Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet, and how we can just move that forward. So, as I've spoken a lot, I'm going to hand it over to you. What do you think about Tony's comment?
So, my big worry about having Mega Pokemon be the HM users or being the ride call Pokemon is it softens what Mega Evolution is for me. Mega Evolution is that kind of, and we were talking about this last week, it should feel like that last-ditched attempt. I have to pull this trick out my hat in order to win this fight. And it's a very combat-centric mechanic. If we suddenly go, oh no, you just Mega Evolve a Pokemon and go around and riding on it, it's like, I don't know. It was the same kind of feeling I had towards Miraidon and Koraidon. They were supposed to be the big legendaries of the game, but you get them at the very beginning and use them as your bike. So you kind of don't have this kind of awe that you should have of a legendary Pokemon. And I feel like that would happen with Mega Evolution.
I agree, because now that I originally was leaning towards this comment, I thought, oh, that's a really good idea of how you implement it. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that from a lore perspective, a lot of the Mega Evolutions are like,
they're painful.
I mean, they're painful, and it feels like it's almost that the only reason they're Mega Evolving is because they want to fight, they want to win, they are at their peak as a Pokemon, and this is how they show it. And I could imagine riding a Gyarados around. I couldn't imagine riding a Mega Gyarados around, because it feels like that thing would turn on me in an instant, because it hasn't got a way to kind of get rid of its frustration and anger, and which is why it Mega Evolves, because it's got this power that it just needs to let loose. Saying that, though, I do think that there is a way you could potentially blend it of you have a Pokemon in your party, and that Pokemon will allow you to use these HMs and mechanics, whatever they might be, and that potentially builds up some kind of friendship mechanic, which then allows you to Mega Evolve in battle. That's one way they could potentially implement it.
So it means as well that you could have, again, if we were talking about, sorry to talk over you.
Right.
If we're talking about having like a party full of your Pokemon and then a party full of what is effectively HM users, but we're talking about like either I fly on this Pokemon, but if we've already got animations for flying on the Pokemon, how much more is it to have the Pokemon fly to pick up an item, say? So you could, for instance, summon Pokemon to do certain tasks around the world. So, for instance, you've got, you can either dig on a Pokemon. I don't know, just random thought. You're talking about Mega Evolution. My brain went to Steelix and digging on it.
Fair enough.
Dig isn't one of those ones where you really want to be on the Pokemon while you're doing it, but I could see it working very well for something like, you use dig, you see the Pokemon dig a tunnel, or uses Rock Smash to get past something. I could see that working in a thing of like, they have the ride functionality and they have the collecting functionality along with that ride ability, and using them as such allows you to build that friendship without having to have them in the party.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. So you're saying that, like, let's say you're Steelix, for example, it wouldn't need to be in your party. You've got your 6 normal fighting team, and you just got Steelix as a side. You've got some kind of Pokemon that you can choose to use in almost a HM/Let's Go mechanic.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can see that working. I quite like that as well.
And that works like, as Tony's saying about sort of the ride call. It's that same kind of principle. You don't need them in your party. They don't need to learn a certain move. It's just a Pokemon that can do this. Add it to your list. And that way as well, you can go, okay, we've got these effective HMs. We've got these ride abilities. So rock climb, fly, surf, sprint. Sure, why not? You know, and we'll have those. And yeah, there's only so many Pokemon that can learn each of these. Yeah. But there is a variety of Pokemon that can learn them. So therefore, you can put any of those Pokemon in that list, and you just have access to them. So instead of it being, I've got to run around on Weirdeer, it's, I can run around on my Arcanine, I can run around on my Voltorb, I can run around on... We had it in Let's Go.
Yeah, yeah. It's frustrating because so many of the pieces are there. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, except for the pieces are all in different boxes. Like the perfect jigsaw's there. They just need to like take elements from each of the games and smush them all together, and suddenly we've got a really good Pokemon game.
And I think that's why we have such high expectations from Game Freak and from Pokemon games, despite what we have been delivered, is because, as you say, if you took all the good bits out of every single Pokemon game, you would have the perfect Pokemon game. You would. We're not asking for anything that hasn't already been done or isn't a minor tweak on what's already been done.
Yep. Yep. And this is part of the frustration, I think, is that Game Freak have this habit of, and I think this comes back to that development time and development issue, is we're going to create a brand new game. These are the elements that we are carrying over, and these are all the elements that we're ditching. But then they go, well, let's introduce all these new elements. It's like, well, okay, I get that you're excited about introducing all these new elements, but that takes development time. Whether or not it's building assets, whether or not it's building character models or animations, whether or not it's, the graphic design elements of it, whatever it might be, they're introducing brand new things. And I think they've kind of shot themselves in the foot because this isn't something that is... I think the development resource issue became apparent when they moved to 3D models. Because obviously when it was all sprite-based, it felt like it was a lot easier to implement new mechanics because a lot of the foundation was, it's just like a top-down sprite animation, dead easy to add new ones or add a hat over it or whatever, when you think back to like Black and White and, the thinking back to the Poke Blocks and having the contests in Generation 3. Like there was a lot of added of functionality and other ways to play the game that didn't require a lot of resource. Whereas now, as they've moved into the later generations and changed to the new hardware, it's like, it isn't just a matter of adding a couple of pixels. You've got to create a brand new model, and you've got to make sure that model fits quite nicely on. And I'm just using like a hat as an example for some reason. Like that's got to fit on there. But then if the character's moving around, you've got to make sure it all works together. And all these things just add more time. And I think that, Game Freak have kind of done something in terms of that I think has shot them in the foot a little bit of, okay, what are the key things that we carry over from generation to generation? And typically it's 8 gyms or some kind of equivalent. It's your 3 starters that are, fire, water, grass. You go on this typical adventure where you have to stop a bad guy team and a Pokemon. It's all this storyline stuff that gets carried over, but some of the mechanics get dropped. Like, for example, the cooking mechanic in Sword and Shield. Was it fantastic? Was it, no, I wouldn't say it was absolutely amazing. But then they just redid it for Scarlet and Violet, When in actuality, they could have just gone, okay, we've got it in Sword and Shield. We just need to tweak it slightly. That works. Throw it in. It's like the camping mechanic in Sword and Shield. And then they tweaked it slightly for this game. And then the egg breeding mechanic, which they had done for forever. Let's tweak it for this game. And all these little things add up in development and resource time. And it just baffles me why, we know there's a resource issue with Game Freak. We know his audience as people that play the games. They know as developers. So what are they going to do about this? And I'm a little bit concerned they're not going to do anything. And I don't know why I've gone back to resource, because they're like you with the burgers and chips. I'm now very frustrated all of a sudden about Game Freak.
Yep.
Save me.
So I think the question was, how would we include Mega Evolution? I think I've said it. I kind of covered it last week and maybe the week when we first covered Z2A. I want to see Mega Evolution as boss battles. That's it. And
Agreed.
And I still think I stand by what I said last week on I need Mega Evolution to feel special. And therefore I don't want to dilute. Like I don't want to be able to do it every single battle. That's how undiluted I want it. So yeah, I can't possibly see it being a ride mechanic.
No, I don't think it'll be a ride mechanic either. I think that, like we said last week, you've mentioned there, like they need to be the boss battles, and it almost needs to be that kind of Mega Evolution is almost that epic moment in a battle where you're on the back foot. Oh, okay, right, this is amazing. The bond I've built with this Pokemon now allows me to use Mega Evolution. Oh, it's not a one-time thing, but it's not a every single battle kind of thing, and maybe there's a cooldown or something, and there's a way to maybe, reduce that cooldown as you progress throughout the game. Who knows? But yeah, so I'm gonna switch these next two things around. The reason why is because the next one feels like a little bit of a ranty one. Okay.
Yeah, can we have a break?
Can we have a break from the rant?
Little bit.
Okay. Well, actually, the next one, is that we're going to do is the mystery gift stale, and is it time for a change? So we both agreed before that it is stale, right?
Yeah.
It's gone from this. Oh, I remember the mystery gift back on the early generations where you had to use the is it infrared on the Game Boy or whatever it was, and you could use that to unlock items or whatever it was. All I remember is how it works. I can't remember what you actually got with it. Whereas nowadays, it feels like every week that we come to record this podcast and we look at the Pokemon news, and there is always some kind of there's a mystery gift, and it's always these annoying articles that are like, this unique Pokemon is coming to for so long, or it'll be the image will be someone holding a Master Ball. It's like this key item will help you build your team, get it before it's gone, and it's always utter crap. It's like always.
I saw the one this week. It was an article saying this really common Pokemon that only a third of players own is now available for you. It's Quaxley.
Quaxley! It's nonsense!
Only a third of players own it. No, they don't. No, they don't.
Where have you had that from?
They're taking it from, well, you only get one starter, right?
One starter, exactly. It's nonsense.
Ridiculous.
It's nonsense.
So, yeah.
But the mystery gift, it's sandwich items, occasionally Terra Shards, Pokemon by at which point you've already got these Pokemon. So, let's flip it around. How would we make mystery gift good? How would we make it great again?
Okay. I hate that phrase. Anyway.
That's why I used it.
I enjoy getting tournament-specific Pokemon. I still think that's very cool. When you get a so-and-so won this tournament, here's one of the Pokemon that was on their team. I think that's quite cool because it gives you a Pokemon that's already built for competitive. It's usually very specific, unfortunately, and only really supports that one team, but it's still a cool way of doing it.
It is. Yeah.
What good mystery gift have we had? Like the Mew is the only real good one, I think. where you had the Mew and the Mewtwo event. I don't expect them to do events every single time they do a mystery gift. Or do I? Do I? Would I've actually just questioned myself on that one. Would I prefer less mystery gifts and have them actually be events? I think I would,
Yes.
Because
yes,
I don't care.
No.
As you say, we look at these mystery gifts every week and go, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I don't know.
Cool.
I don't need it.
Whatever.
Whereas at least if it's, here's a gift and there's an event to go with it. All right. Now you're giving me not only a reason to pick up the game, put in a code and put it back down again, you've given me a reason to play. And that's really what I'm looking for in a game. Mystery gifts are kind of this, they have this understanding that, oh, well, you're already playing the game anyway. You already have all this stuff, but here, have a freebie because you're still playing. Whereas I think it should be something to bring people back. It should be something exciting where everybody goes, there's what happening? You can get what now? Oh, okay, let's go. My thought is events. I think if that was the case, we'd get far less of them. And I think that would be okay.
I agree with it feels like one of those typical questions of do you want quantity or quality? And at the moment we have quantity. We seem to have a mystery gift every week, every couple of weeks. But the quality's not very good. Okay, the quality is typically just, I've already got that, or I don't care for the most part. Typically, the only time I will do a mystery gift lately is if it's Huber Mystica or a shiny Pokemon. Outside of that, I don't typically care. And that's because I'm at the end game of Scarlet and Violet and my Generation 9 journey. Like, what is there in there for them to offer me? And to be honest with you, not a lot. I think, like you, I would want to see them happen far less, but there would be a reason to log on and do it. Now, I think the way that you could potentially do that is with something as simple as key items that unlock additional content in the game. And I'm trying to come at this from a perspective where they probably don't want to put that much development time into these games, okay? Because they don't. They've got the money's worth, and for the most part, they just want to pump out something that's quick and easy, and they don't need to worry about it. So what I would have is potentially key items that just open up unique dialogue with characters that you've seen in the game already. I'm thinking about, here's a key item that will unlock unique dialogue with Penny, for example, and it's a key item that's just a plush Eevee doll. You rock up, you redeem that code, you then go and track down Penny, and you get to have an additional conversation with it, which is literally could be something as simple as, oh, it's been 3 months since the end of the game, and they reference that, oh, what have I been up to? I've been doing this. Oh, I spoke to Penny, by the way. Spoke to Arvin or whoever, by the way. Fantastic. And then a few months later, you get another item that's like, cooking item that allows you to have a conversation with Arvin, and then opens up a dialogue of, oh yeah, I went back to the old lighthouse. I'm thinking of turning it into a little restaurant, Little things like that probably wouldn't take up that much dialogue, because for the most part it is just going, okay, if someone has this item, this character is in this location and says this line of dialogue, which probably doesn't take up that much development time. I don't know. I'm not a game developer. And I think that's potentially a way to get people that care about the lore, care about the characters, to continue to come back in a unique way that isn't just, here's a new Pokemon, here's a new item.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think we're both kind of asking for new content.
Yeah, which I don't think we're going to get.
Which is not what mystery gifts are, really.
No, they're not. I'm trying to think about the extra content that was added in BDSP. So we get was it Shaman and Darkrai, I think, yeah. Were they mystery gifts? I think they were definitely something, but they were limited time releases. Yeah,
it was kind of you input the code and then the event starts, effectively. It's similar to how like the Eon ticket back in the day was the equivalent of a mystery ticket or a mystery gift. That's the thing. We used to get codes and things for these legendary Pokemon that would unlock side quests, and then they became just have them. And now they've kind of done it with items and things like that. I don't know. I would love to see, like, it would be cool to get mystery gifts that were maybe new clothes. And again, we're talking about new items, unfortunately. But, like, even if it was a case of, oh, here's some clothes you might not have picked up because the clothes are stupid expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, by the time it gets to the end of the game, like now, for example, where we're already looking ahead to the next generation, what is the problem with just going, okay, that stuff that was expensive or difficult to find, here you go, just have it, just take it, it's absolutely fine. Like, it's kind of, it's we're at the point where the mystery gifts, something needs to be done, I feel. But we need to be very aware that, Game Freak has limitations, whether or not they're self-imposed or not, on how much content they want to add to this content at the end of its life. And maybe it is just as simple as, okay, here's stuff that you could have gotten in the game. So here's a way you can get it if you just haven't got around to it. And maybe it is Pokemon that, are end game content, such as the Paradox Pokemon. Maybe it is, battle items that require you to grind for them. Something like that, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at what there is. So we had, I think this is Pokemon now. So you've got Gyarados, Titan, Liko Sprigatito, which is kind of cool, but it's only Liko's because you told me it is. Sweet Herbin Mystica, Spicy Herbin Mystica, Revavroom, Fighting Terra-type, Chest Form Gimmighoul, a Terrastal Cap. Okay. That sounds pretty cool. And that's what I mean. Just a new bit of clothing. Cool. I'd take that. Quaxley, that's the one that's out at the moment.
Yeah.
30 Quick Balls. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It's just not fun, is it? It's
Expert
not useful, not fun.
A specific Pawmot from a Yoasobi's? I don't know. It's all capitals, so I presume that's a player. No idea. And then you start getting into the really bad ones that are like 50 Ice Terra Shards, random assortment of sandwich ingredients, randomly picked from Comet Shard, Star Piece, or Stardust. Wow.
Oh, wow. See, it's just uninspiring. It's not fun. It's not good. I don't think it's getting players back in. So what's the point of it?
Do you want 2 love balls? Would that bring you back to the game if I gave you 2 love balls?
You know what? I'm going to have to wrap up the podcast here and go and redeem them. it's so, and you know what? Actually, I'm coming back round on this about the amount of work they would have to put into this, because thinking about it, surely it's a case of during the original development time, you kind of forward plan of, okay, what content are we going to have out? Okay, create the content during the game development stage. And then surely there is a case of, okay, between this release window, this code is active, which allows you to redeem this code, redeem this item or Pokemon or whatever it might be. So actually thinking about it, there's nothing stopping them from doing it that way, I'd imagine. Of just development time. This is what people are going to be able to redeem over the next 2 to 3 years of this game, and they do between this window. It's set up, right, we can leave that to it now. So actually, they don't need to pump out the terrible items because they could do some good ones up front.
Yes, in theory. My question is, would they have time?
No. No, they wouldn't. Let's be honest. And I want to lean away from some of the other things that I originally had some ideas about this, whether or not you could have some kind of randomization of you will get a item or a Pokemon, it'll be from a selection of this, but that brings us very dangerously into loot boxes.
Loot box territory.
That kind of, which I don't like.
So that was kind of where I was leaning, because I was looking down, and some of these are, they're kind of good. An ability capsule. Is it the be-all and end-all? No. but they're relatively hard to come by, and it would be good to get one for free. A gold bottle cap. Again, nothing super spectacular, but relatively hard to grind for, and I'd love one for free. And I went down that same mind as you, or a Master Ball. Sure, everybody's just got Master Balls everywhere now, but the point stands that these would be very cool to get, and they are usually either one-off items in game or items that are hard to come by. Fine. And my initial thought was, like the tumble machine within Unite.
Yes.
That kind of thing was what I was thinking. But yeah, you're right. We're getting dangerously close to loot boxes. And here's the real question. Does any of this matter now that we've got the DLC with the item machine that you can just grind out whatever you want?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think, you know what is a way they could potentially do this, thinking about it, is maybe the legendaries. But obviously they don't want to give away mythicals. And the legendaries that were introduced in Scarlet and Violet's DLC was there's a character that you spoke to. And then there was something that you had to do, and I can't remember. And then once you got so many points or whatever it was, you could then go, oh, the Lugia is somewhere here, and he gave you a photo, I think. I've got this vague recollection of it. And the reason I didn't do it, because they were all shiny locked. So I was like, no, I've got those legendaries, don't need it, not going to go out after them. So maybe that's a way they could potentially do it of, okay, it's month X, redeem your code between now and this date, and therefore you'll be able to encounter this legendary Pokemon in this location, and there's a chance for it to be shiny. Maybe that's a way that they get people back into it.
Yeah. I mean, that would work better for me if I still had to go catch it. My thing with legendaries is don't just give me the Pokemon through a mystery gift.
Agreed.
But you're right. If it's just a Pokemon in a given area within the game, that takes away from the development time issue because they just plonk them in. And it still allows for people to come back, play the game. You've got a reason to go and shiny hunt them because you don't shiny lock them because that's stupid. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah. There you go. We've solved mystery gifts.
Or even here you go. You don't even have to have legendary Pokemon. You just go down the route of here's a new Titan. You give them Titan level stats or Totem level stats, or it's super duper difficult. And I understand that they have the raids and stuff like that, but I just don't like the raid mechanic. So give me a wild Pokemon that's eaten some Herba Mystica and is super buffed up, similar to how the trio were in Kitakami.
Yeah.
They're a bit bigger. They're a bit stronger. You have a hard fight. You try and catch them. You go from there.
Another idea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I agree with this, but there's an option. Okay, so typically we've had issues with the last two games with the DLC releases with a swath of Pokemon that you can already get in previous games. But people have complained that they are they're locked behind, they're content locked. So it's like, well, if I want to get this Pokemon, I have to buy the DLC, but I don't want to buy the DLC.
Or trade with someone who has the DLC.
Or trade with someone that has the DLC. What if it was a case of, okay, if you don't want to buy the DLC, that's absolutely fine, but as a mystery gift, we will start to give out Pokemon that are only available in the DLC. Therefore, if you're not bought the DLC, that's fine. You will be able to get them at some point. It pleases players that don't want to buy the DLC because they can get it for free doing it via the mystery gift route. And maybe there's a bit of legwork of, oh no, you get the final form evolution. If you want the two previous ones, you've got to go and breed or something. But it also benefits Game Freak because the players then are coming back to play the game. And therefore, if they're playing the game, there's potentially a chance they might go, oh, you know what? I do enjoy this game. I'm going to buy the DLC.
All right. But I, as somebody who gave them more money, now I'm getting less from the mystery gift.
Yeah, it only benefits the people.
I agree with you to a certain point, but I can definitely see a negative in there of you're just giving me Pokemon that I've already paid you for.
Yeah. Yes, no, I get it. So, you know what they should do, and they won't, is it's almost that kind of Pokemon Go mechanic of, you want Pikachu with a hat? Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
Like, give me the Pikachu with the hat. I want the Pikachu with the hat. Do you want a Fuecoco with its like, I don't know, got holding a burnt orange? Yeah, I want that. Like, gimme.
And I kind of thought this as well when I was talking about clothes and things earlier. I would really love them to introduce, like we see in Unite and we saw in Let's Go and things like that, a way to dress up your Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then they just give us random items every few months.
Yeah.
Oh, and even if it is a case of like you roll the dice from a list, if you roll the dice from the list, they must be tradable. But yeah,
you could do it another way. You could do that whole. There's a random element to it, but if you log on every single time there's a mystery gift, you will get them all. It's just a matter of when you get them. I'm actually okay with that. Because mystery gift, you don't need a Nintendo Switch Online connection. You literally just need to be able to connect to Wi-Fi. That's all you need to be able to do, and it will connect you to online. You get the gift, and it goes disconnecting from online because I've been able to do it. So maybe that's a way that you do it. There we go. We just saved mystery gift.
I mean, we have just again added to more content.
We have. But it's fun content, though. That's the thing. People want this kind of content, Conor.
The answer is unshiny locked legendaries and unshiny locked random Pokemon within the game. I think
that'd get me doing it. Completely agree. Let's move on to the last article of this week, the lost Pokemon of previous generations. So I stumbled across a recent article in VG247, which I'm assuming is Video Game 24/7. With the headline, Pokemon fans are facing a serious dilemma following the end of Nintendo 3DS online features. Now, the overall crux of this story was that there are 12 Pokemon available in Sun and Moon with boosty stats and larger sizes. However, transferring them to Pokemon Bank turns them into regular Pokemon. So they have two choices. They either leave them in the game, which they can function then as they were originally designed, or they can transfer them. And they lose all that unique functionality about them. Now, I don't think that the issue here is about them being stuck in those games. I think the issue here is almost that, going back to what we said, they design elements, they design functionality and gameplay, but then it doesn't roll over into later generations, such as currently you can move Pokemon from Sword and Shield that can Gigantamax with their unique animation into Pokemon Home. But you can't use that uniqueness on that Pokemon outside of the game they were originally introduced in. Now, from a wanting to catch them all, there's definitely some, there's a part of me that wants to get all those Gigantamax Pokemon and put them into my Pokemon Home so I've got them. But is there an issue here, or are Game Freak missing out on the potential to kind of go, oh, you've been with the series for this long? Well, there's and you've got these rare Pokemon, these unique Pokemon. Are they missing out on not implementing them in some way in future games?
Especially when you're talking about like totem Pokemon, which are bigger and have better stats. Okay, there's an argument for let's not have them in competitive. And I'll come back to that idea in a minute. But we already have bigger Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet because you can cross over your alpha Pokemon. And they are just bigger. As far as I'm aware, the alpha Pokemon are just bigger in Scarlet and Violet. So you could have them. There's no reason you couldn't have totem Pokemon in there. So yes, they've missed the boat on that one, I think. Realistically, and we've mentioned this maybe once or twice, there should realistically be a way that you can be Ash Ketchum from the final series and have all your solutions. Have your Mega Stone, have your Z Crystal, have your Dynamax Band, have your Terra Orb and things like that. You're not allowed to use it till post game. Like post game, if we want to say that. Like all the DLC and stuff's got to come out first and then you can have it. That'd be a very good mystery gift to have. Here's your Mega Ring in a mystery gift. Beautiful.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, no, I could. But it's not in competitive. We don't do it in online battles. arguably, there should still be a way to do online battles with friends in any kind of style you want, with any kind of Pokemon you want. And we're not getting into that argument. That's not what we're talking about right now. But yeah, they realistically should have a way to implement every single mechanic into every single game. Because I don't think it takes away from the home region. I don't think having Mega Evolution in Hoenn took away from the specialness of Kalos. I don't think having Mega Evolution in Alola took away from Kalos. And that more so, because that's exactly what they did. They waited until post game, and they went, oh, by the way, you can have Mega Evolution now. You've done Z Crystals all the way up till now. Now you can have Mega Evolution. It just should be. And sure, maybe it's difficult because it's a case of like, well, where do you Dynamax? Because lore-wise, there has to be Galar particles, and there's no Galar particles here. I was like, well, you just say in around raids.
Oh, yeah, you could have literally a throwaway line and a throwaway item, because like look at Mega Evolutions. Oh, you just happen to have a watch which has some kind of Mega Stone. I've literally got a watch with Galar particles inside of it. Like, you literally just do that. You just make it as simple as possible. Like, oh, you've managed to contain part of that, and because you have a bond with the Pokemon, the Pokemon can take advantage of that unique phenomenon.
Let's not forget that they created Blueberry Academy out of dirt that Terrapagos had just touched once.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've completely forgot about that.
So
you're absolutely right.
It doesn't need to make sense.
We thought the orb was going... the orb that's at the top of the... We thought that was going to come into play.
It's got dirt in it. That's all that's in it.
That's all it is. So yeah, they can do what, from a lore perspective, they have a team of writers that will be able to just go, yeah, we can hand wave that away, and we can come up with something that allows us to be creative. Now, I also agree that they should go for the Ash Ketchum approach of, oh, okay, you can do all of it, and this is me that wants Pokemon to become a bit more difficult. I want to face a champion that's like, yeah, I'm the champion for a reason. Like everyone else, they're playing the tier below me. I've got Gigantamax, I've got Mega Evolution, I've got Z moves, I've got Terrestrialization, I've got whatever Gen 10's gonna have. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that. And like from a competitive point of view, again, I think it just opened up the meta of, okay, you've got Z moves, Gigantamax, Terrestrialization, blah blah blah, whatever you've got. You can equip all them on those Pokemon, but you're allowed to use a maximum of 2 in the battle, 3 in the battle, whatever it might be. I'm okay with those totem Pokemon having boosted stats, because none of the totem Pokemon, as far as I'm aware, were already broken Pokemon. By boosting their stats, you're just maybe making them more viable in a match, but not in such a way that they are broken. And sorry, what I mean by boosted stats, I don't mean the Pokemon comes out and it gets a stat boost across all of them. I'm talking about, instead of having, 100 HP as a stat normally, this Ratcate's got 120 HP. It's nothing that is going to be absolutely broken, but then they opens up opportunities for players to go, okay, this Pokemon, now in Generation 9, the fact I can terrestrialize it or Mega Evolve it, it opens up opportunities to use that. And it might mean that we don't see the same stuff every tournament of, 9 out of 10 Pokemon on every team are the same Pokemon with the same moves and the same EV spreads and the same items and the same Terra type. It just gets boring. Like, open it up. Like, just go, we have this wealth of content. Let's implement it in later generations, rather than every generation being almost a soft reboot of the franchise.
Yeah. I'd love to see it. I don't know if we will.
Maybe Gen 10. But even then, I think there's a lot that they would just go, we have to draw a line somewhere, and therefore all you're getting is the big ones, not the custom Pokemon.
Because all the gimmicks really started coming in with the 3D models.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're designing anything extravagantly new. We are just porting over and upscaling, basically.
Yeah. And the fact that we're getting Mega Evolution for Legends that's implies that it's doable, whether or not they're having to recreate from scratch, or they are just, like, say, taking the older models, upscaling them, make some tweaks to it, and then there you go, hey presto. Like, it's obviously doable in some way. So, like, give the fans what they want. And for me, and I'm probably a minority here, I want more of a challenge. I want them to actually roll features into later generations instead of just scrapping them completely. Because I think that's part of the issue. Going back to almost the core of this episode about the development issues that they have and just creating more work for themselves. And part of the reason they create more work for themselves is because the work that they do in generations, they scrap most of it rather than just going, oh, let's just naturally just roll it into the next generation. It's just starting to annoy me that, there are mechanics and features in older games that you can only play in those older games, which wouldn't be an issue if so many of those games weren't unavailable or difficult to get a hold of or costly to get a hold of.
So I'm just thinking as well, sort of, Sun and Moon is really the only one that's done it. It's the only one to go, we're going to take on an old gimmick and we're going to add a new one.
Yeah.
And as the only one that's done it, it's the only one we can point at and go, there's the example. And the example is, you didn't get any new Mega Evolutions. There was no new Mega Evolutions in Sun and Moon. It wasn't about Mega Evolutions. We were doing Z moves. So in a similar way, if they roll everything forward, when we did Galar, we'd have had Z moves, we'd have had Mega Evolutions post game, but we wouldn't have got any new ones. Now we're looking at Z2A and they've said, hey, Megas are back. We are expecting new Mega Evolutions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think fans would get upset if it's a case of, hey, we've had Mega Evolutions for 5 generations now, and it's been in every single game, and we haven't seen any new ones?
I think the way around that is that you just take a couple of Pokemon each generation and slowly build up. So a bit like they do with regional forms. Regional forms are probably the example where every generation they handpick a couple and go, okay, we've got an idea that we want to do with these. And you could do that with Mega Pokemon. So every generation you pick a handful and you go, these are your Mega Pokemon for this generation. Oh, Gigantamax? Well, these are the ones that get custom forms for this generation. Actually, I was going to say terrestrialization, but there isn't anything for terrestrialization.
So
New hats. Sure.
I'm going to counterpoint you.
Yeah.
Simply because that means that we've got a bunch of new Pokemon, even if it's just 3 or 4 that get Mega Evolution, or even 2. Let's say 2 get Mega Evolution. All right, these are 2 Pokemon that we've got to balance. Got to sort out the movesets for. Got to sort out the ability for. Got to sort out the animation for. Okay. Now we've also got 2 Pokemon that are doing Z moves. Now, Z moves are quite a lot of animation. If we're doing specific Z moves, which it would have to be, realistically, because all the normal ones are set. All the normal types are set. Now we're looking for specific Z moves. Okay, now we got a lot of animation to add in here. Okay, now we got Gigantamax, so that's... Well, not only have we got to now include the ability for these 2 new Pokemon that we've got to have this Gigantamax form and animate that and design that and stat that out and get the ability set and all that kind of stuff and balance it. But now we've also got to go back and make sure that every Pokemon in here can Dynamax and have an animation for when they're Dynamax. And if they had a Gigantamax form, we got to port that over. I can see why they don't do it.
I agree. I can completely agree with you there.
That doesn't mean I don't want it.
Exactly. This is the crux. And this is part of the issue, I think, with the way Game Freak is set up of every... every generation is almost, like I said, that soft reboot of, every generation someone's first generation. Okay, they just take the core mechanics and then roll it across, and not everything, but a lot of the stuff in the previous generation just gets scrapped or just it's unused. Well, that's only the case because they've set it up the way that they've set it up. So, we talk about, to go back to Power World. Okay, again, it's not the best game ever, but it implements a load of mechanics in a really good way. Now, Power World does something really clever because a lot of their animations are basically special attack. And because of that, it doesn't have a lot of the issue that it has of, okay, we need to take, over 1,000 Pokemon with, I don't know, 10,000 odd moves at this point. I don't know how many moves we've got. It's at least several thousand. Okay, we need to match those moves to these Pokemon, and we just create a move that, there's no connect. The Pokemon don't run up and connect and stuff like that. What I'm trying to get at here is that they're a victim of their own, I don't want to say success, but their own methods. The way they've set that up. It was
short-sightedness early on. I mean, realistically, having Pokemon go up through every generation could be considered short-sightedness. Because it's now become an expectation that gotta catch 'em all was such a good tagline in the beginning, and it's bitten them, and it bit them hard.
Yeah.
Because now people expect it. Yeah, there's 1,000 Pokemon. I want every single one of them in my game. Whereas you look at other monster catching franchises like Digimon has never offered that. And nobody expects it. And nobody questions it because it was never given to them, which means it could have never been taken away. And that's what I think Pokemon does that hurts them, is they give us all this cool stuff and then they take it away.
Yes.
And it hurts. And I feel like I'm missing out. And I want it back. I can't miss what I don't have, Game Freak. I don't know.
I think, just to kind of wrap this up, I think that, they are one of the biggest franchises in the world. If they wanted to do, Gen 10, all bells and whistles, and it has everything, I think they have the power to do that. But I think they have to probably have some conversations about, okay, moving forward, do we just continue to do what we do? Because the problem is that, like you've just mentioned, that, short-sightedness, it's only going to compound as it moves forward. As we hit 2,000 Pokemon, 3,000 Pokemon, which I believe in our lifetime, we're easily going to hit 2,000 Pokemon. Going to happen. And all those moves and all those abilities and all those unique animations, and every generation they're adding more and more, there comes a point where I really do think they need to go, okay, the Legends route of, in this game, there is 400 odd Pokemon and about 15 to 20 of them are new, and that's all you're getting. And you know what? Despite the fact that Legends Arceus went down that route, I don't think it suffered for it, because it was very much these are the Pokemon. We have chosen these Pokemon for a specific reason. Here are the new Pokemon. There you go.
And I still stand by the point, it's the only Pokedex I've ever completed. Because it was small enough and I could get it on my own. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that is the way they move forward. So every generation you don't get, 400 odd Pokemon, and about somewhere between 100 and 200 of them are brand new. Like, slim it down and go, okay, this is... And the way they make up for that is by going, okay, so there's less Pokemon, but there are ways that make you feel like you bond with these Pokemon better. There's a better story there. There's better mechanics there. And that's the way... Because for me, I must admit, once I've caught the majority of the new Pokemon every generation, they sit in a box. I don't touch them. I don't use them. Yeah, when's the last time you looked at the low kicks? Exactly. Like, I know every Pokemon is someone's favorite, but, just condense that Pokedex down and people will still find a favorite within that smaller condensed Pokedex.
And the benefit of doing it that way is, let's say that you only have 400 Pokemon in the next game, and 20 of them are new. People aren't going to use all those 20. More likely to use them than if there's 120 new Pokemon, because there's a smaller pool to choose from. But eventually, those new Pokemon will get rolled into a later game as modern Pokemon or pre-release or previously released Pokemon. There's a chance for them to shine again, and that's one of the ways that I think that they get around some of the issues of their own making.
Yeah.
It's gonna like Gen 10. I'm really excited for, because I think it's gonna go down one of two routes. I don't think it's middle of the road. I think it is either a massive, like, look at how much stuff there is in Generation 10, and look how big and bombastic it is, because 30th generation, wow, it's one of the most highly reviewed Pokemon games of all time.
Or it instigates so many people's midlife crisis.
Yeah, because people just go, what is this?
What am I wasting my life doing? Why do I have a podcast? I care way more about this game than the creators, clearly.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap up this episode. That's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Before you go, we'd really appreciate if you could leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're watching on YouTube, then please leave a like, as it really helps out our podcast. If you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter. Connor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget, or on Twitter at CapFidget.
I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. A quick plug from me. If you haven't already, go along to my channel to watch the latest Then We Fight video with British Eagle, who I've done plenty of series before, and he's also been on this podcast a couple of times. And with all that being said, we'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya!